the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AVWeek is recorded and distributed in partnership with Rave Pubs. For more information, go to ravepubs.com. This is AVWeek, episode number 20, recorded December 16th, 2011. Fruit salad Jello.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing. Scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. AV Week. It's time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of news, information, and commentary for the AV industry. I'm your host, Tim Albright. With us this week is Bradford Benn. Bradford is the applications expert from Harman Group. Hello, Bradford.
Hello.
Not to be confused, we also have Brad Grimes. Brad is the senior editor for InfoComm International. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome. And across the desk from me is Michael Drainer. He's the systems manager. You're no way, you could be an engineer, but you're the systems manager.
I'm an engineer turned sales
geek.
Yeah.
For the Sound AV group of Tech Electronics in St. Louis.
Hello, everyone.
This week on AV Week, we're going to talk about CEPro's Person of the Year, recycling your old gear. Extron's got a new sexy power supply. And I have a way for all of us to make $500,000. I'm excited because I'm going to buy an Xbox with it. But first, WebOS. And Michael kind of pushed back on me on this. Why we're talking about an operating system for a cell phone, or even for a mobile device or a tablet. Here's my thing, and real quickly, in a 30-second synopsis of WebOS. WebOS was a brand new operating system developed by Palm, if you remember the Palm Pilot and the Trio cell phones. It was their foray into trying to combat, the iOS stuff. I think it was cool. I think it was a great operating system. HP purchased Palm, didn't really know what to do with it. The Palm Pre, which is the cell phone that it was actually on, wasn't doing well, and so they said, hey, let's slap it on a tablet. That didn't work. They actually tried to offload the tablets for about $100 a piece, and they went like hotcakes, but they were losing their shirts on the tablets. And so now Meg Whitman says, hey, let's put it on the open source market. Let's open source this sucker just like Linux and just like Mozilla and all of the other stuff. This is where I come in and where I think it's a really cool idea. It gives people like Savant and like Aurora and like Control 4 a sexy, stable operating system to go against people like AMX and Crestron from the front end, from the consumer end of control systems. We'll start with you, Bradford. Does that sound plausible? Does that even sound right? Because it's open source now, these guys can take it and run with it and start competing when it comes to the actual front end of control systems.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Part of it is I agree with the idea of it is possible to use a tablet WebOS operating system for control systems. You look at just how pervasive iPad and iOS is. But the reason I'm not sure that open source will work so well is just looking at all the branches that will start coming off of it. Having dealt with, which version of Linux are you running, which Boxy are you running, which PlayStation media server are you running with all this open source stuff, that you start getting all these different branches going on. Now, if they go to a model like Red Hat has done, where you can get the commercial and the non-commercial version, that I could see as being viable. But having this open source and truly available to go anywhere that someone wants it, I think hackers will, the same way they tweak their iPhone to tweet when their dog goes out, I think they can hack this to make it into a control system. But I'm not sure common market it'll go everywhere because, I think about our friend Rich and, he's always flying around the country programming control systems. And can you imagine if each one was a different branch, he would have to start over at scratch each time.
Yeah, the question is how soon will it be rooted or jailbroke or whatever the case may be.
It doesn't have to be jailbroke. That's the idea, though. It's open source.
Well, for the application, though, right? I mean, as soon as they discover that they can start making modifications to it, then it's going to be no different than like the Kinect or, the latest Android tablet where you're doing all kinds of stuff it was never intended to do. I think it's a cool concept, but just like Bradford's saying, I just don't know if the practicality of it really suits the application, or the application suits the practicality of it.
Well, and at the end of the day, Tim, I agree. I thought it was a great platform. HP couldn't sell it. As soon as HP started their fire sale, people started recognizing it and saying, it's pretty good stuff. I sort of, I'm depressed that it's going away. And then they sort of, but part of the reason it's going away is because there's other stuff out there. I mean, there are all the iOS control interfaces. There's, Android is also, free for people to develop on. I think what'll happen is it'll be interesting to see some small startups maybe try to start something based on an open source web OS. But I would wonder if it's got a long-term future.
Okay, good enough. I've been thoroughly trounced, so.
Well, just so you guys know, I kind of confronted him about even bringing the story to the table, but he brought up some good arguments, and I think it's good discussion. I thought that maybe there was opportunity for a few startups to come out of the woodwork.
And that might be too, but I guess my thinking is from the end user standpoint, and that is, you know what, all these guys talking ones and zeros on the back end, and I'm not going to get into comparing a Pro 2 to an Crestron controller to an Aurora, any of that. But there is a marked difference between Aurora's front end, Control 4's front end, and a TPS-6X from Crestron, or the Modelo from AMX. And I'm not trying to be, hateful to any of those wonderful companies, but there is a sexy difference. I mean, there just is. And go ahead. I was just thinking that the WebOS would give these guys at least, instead of coming to a gunfight with a knife, it would at least give them some kind of gun.
Mm-hmm. And I agree that it can look a lot sexier because, as Steve Jobs has proven, the interface can win the battle for you. Mm-hmm. But I also think that a lot of the customers where this would be installed would want to have the phone number that they can pick up and yell at someone when it doesn't work. And with open source, you lose that.
You do, except, and I guess I was trying to get too much into the mind of the companies here. I was trying to be the head of Control 4 or the head of Aurora by saying, you know what, it's open source. We can write our own and standardize it for us and our company. And then we support it because we're the guys that wrote it. We own it then. We take the open source SDK or however that works. We write it ourselves, and then this becomes the Aurora version of WebOS or the Control 4 version of WebOS. And then you go from there. So, I mean, it's no different than Red Hat or I don't know all the different flavors of Linux, but there are several different commercial, quote-unquote, versions of Linux, right?
Yep.
Well, Red Hat owns the Red Hat version of Linux, right? I don't call them if I take the Linux kernel and screw with it myself. So, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think that people will take a look at it, but at the end of the day, like you were mentioning from the end user point of view, I mean, the end users already voted. They voted iOS, they voted Android. They haven't voted WebOS, which is why it's now being released into the public realm.
Yeah.
If
And
you can't sell it, give it away.
Yeah, and it's like you said, Tim, it's a great platform. I completely agree. It's a great platform. I would love to see someone develop something on it. But people don't always go for the best platform. They go for what's in front of them. And I'm not saying iOS is a great platform. Android is a good platform. They voted, and I think that companies like Control 4, see that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Bradford mentioned Steve Jobs. This week, or the past couple weeks of this year, CEPro, Julie Jacobson, and the group came out with their inaugural Person of the Year. And it was Mr. Jobs. My question to you guys, and Michael, we'll start with you. Is this a good pick? Was it picked because Mr. Jobs passed away, or because he really should have been the first Person of the Year when it comes to CEPro?
I think it's definitely the result of the tragedies that have occurred over the past year. Mr. Jobs probably would not have been nominated had the incidences that occurred not happened. That being said, I can't think of anyone who is more worthy of the nomination than Steve Jobs, given his contribution to the consumer and the professional electronics industry.
Bradford, you? Anybody else?
I'd say Steve Jobs was a good pick. I do think, as Michael alluded to, a lot of it is because he did pass away this year. But just if you look at how big of an impact he has had in consumer electronics as well as in the pro industry with, the ubiquitous iPad interface. And when people say, I'm listening to it on my iPod, they don't say they're listening to it on their MP3 player, even if it is. I think in terms of that impact, it can't be beat. It's kind of like I mentioned before. He took existing technology and made it unbelievably easy to use, and he made the user interface the win, which to me is a good thing. But he made it so that electronics were accessible to non-tech people, which is pretty hard to do.
It is, because he did kind of make he took what was scary and very intimidating to most people, and he made it, like you said, he made it accessible. So, Brad, do you have anybody else, or are we gonna have a quorum here?
No, I think it's quorum. I think it's all of the above. I'm not going to peer into the minds of Julie and Jason and everybody over there. But it's apt, in a year where a visionary passes away to establish an award like this, and he's obviously deserving of it. And his contributions, especially for the CEPro industry, are interesting. I mean, he's also made it changed the paradigm of control interfaces. Made it so you don't need multi-$1,000 control interfaces anymore, which is that's something that the CE industry has to deal with. He's also made a generation comfortable touching things, touching electronics. They're not the first company to ever try to have a touch interface or touch this. But they made it so that they made people willing to do it. And the biggest thing he did was he separated content from the medium. Mm-hmm. I grew up thinking music was a disc. And it never occurred to me that music was just something that was delivered on a disc or delivered on a tape, and now it's completely separate content, books, video, music. All the media is now separated from the medium, and now the way people deliver content around their homes, around their businesses, has completely changed because he's popularized that separation.
I just have to say that Miss Jacobson's nomination is definitely much better than the Time Person of the Year.
Oh, be quiet.
It is.
It's not. That was a good... I'm not going to get into that. I liked Times Person of the Year.
You did.
I'm hanging up a protest.
if you didn't know that the Person of the Year was the protester.
I mean, give me a real person at least. Come on. Not to change the subject, but give me a person.
You know what?
Not a figure.
In 1984, it was the personal computer. This is not the first time that they've done a...
I know, and I disagreed with it in 1994 or 84 when I was 7 years old.
You couldn't read in 84.
We're not sure he can now.
No, he can't. Listening to AVWeek.
That's why I'm still trying to figure that one out.
That yahoo over there is Michael Drainer. Also on the other end is Bradford Grimes from Harmon, Crown, whatever. I just did that, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
That was bound to happen.
That was bound to happen, and it's only 5 minutes into the show. Brad Grimes from InfoComm, Bradford Benn from Harmon /Crown / he's a really smart guy that knows a lot of stuff, and he works for Harmon. So
I'll go with that.
Wow, that didn't take long at all. From Rave Publications, this is from Rave Pacific Media Associates. They released their 3D penetration finding for K through 12. If you've ever listened to this show in any way, shape, or form, and we've talked about 3D, you know my feelings about 3D. I think it's stupid. I don't.
Why don't you just tell us how you feel?
I don't have a use for it. I should say this. I have one use for it, and actually, it is this. It's education. But here's the nutshell of the study. Basically, they said there's a large interest for it, but not a lot of penetration. There's a great need. There's the people that are in K through 12, and I would even say even higher ed. They have a want for 3D, but it's not making it in there. Brad, we'll start with you. Is there a reason that if they have the want, if there's the want there, then I guess what's the next step to get them to pull the trigger and get it in there?
Well, the money. I mean,
yeah.
And I completely agree with you, Tim. I have my reservations about 3D, except as far as it goes in the Pro AV space, where I think it has a lot of application. It has a lot of great application in K through 12 schools. Unfortunately, even as maybe the economy starts to turn around, state, local, community governments, school systems are still pinched tight. They just don't have the money to spend on these kind of systems right now. Which to me is the biggest issue. I mean, they're trying to make sure that they don't have to fire teachers right now.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to go and invest in a lot of 3D. That said, great application for it, and I can completely see where school systems and districts would like to get immersive 3D in there. It makes a lot of sense in a lot of places. It doesn't, personally speaking, doesn't make a lot of sense in my living room or my family room.
No.
But it has a lot of terrific pro applications.
Bradford, is this? Let's say that as the technology matures, just like all technology, the price will come down. So, is this a good vein for 3D to kind of make their bones, or should they try to push it into Brad and I's living room?
I think that 3D is a solution looking for a problem.
I like you.
So I understand, you look at all the stuff that's coming out in 3D, movies that are being re-released, and I kind of scratch my head and go, is it really better and immersive as Brad Grimes said, or is it just new copy protection and a new way to sell you more hardware? And I agree with Brad on there are better things for the school to spend their money on than 3D. I also think that at some point, someone's, I hate to disparagingly say politically correct, but as someone who has bad eyesight, 3D doesn't work for me. So what am I going to do? What would I do in a school with 3D? I've gone to theme parks where they spend millions of dollars on 3D and it doesn't work. So why would I think it would work in a school? And then, I've been to schools for service, to go out and pitch my wares, and they're still using, VHS cassettes.
Yep.
So, coax, going from coax to S-video would be a step up. Going to HDMI and 3D would
Do you hear that, Tim? Do you hear that, Tim? For those of you you got to listen to last week's episode.
He said it would be a step up. Right. S-video is a step up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's provided you're running coax to begin with.
It's now. Do I think that it has some good applications? Yes, I do. Do I think it's a panacea? No, I don't. And I think I'm not putting it in my living room. I bought a new TV last year, and I saved a couple grand because I didn't put it in my living room, but it doesn't work for me.
Michael, you actually have a similar. I don't know medically if it's the same problem as Bradford, but you can't see 3D either. So is this? I mean, you're obviously not going to put this in your living room, but are you going to pitch this and try to make some money off of it to education?
If it's a viable solution to solve a problem or satisfy a need that one of my customers has, absolutely, I'll pitch it to them. You and I have talked extensively about different applications, specialty applications in the engineering and the sciences and things like that, and the ability to utilize 3D to enhance the educational experience. And in those applications, I think that it is definitely something that has its place. I don't see the content production and the adoption rate in the residential and the consumer markets happening fast enough to sustain the growth of 3D in those markets. We see the manufacturers pushing it out. We see the retail stores promoting it. And I'm going back to what Brad, I don't remember if it's Brad or Bradford that said it, about the dollars, right? It's about selling hardware because the content just isn't there yet. Unless you've got consumers who are willing to pay for the content and pay good prices for the content, the providers aren't going to develop it.
Well, and that goes back to a slight deviation. Bradford mentioned, they're re-releasing movies. One of the movies that my kids, and I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, big Disney fans, I should buy stock in the company, is Lion King. And Lion King was originally released. It was one of their in the 1990s, and it's being re-released in 3D. Now, you can't sit here and tell me that they went back and they redrew the entire movie to be done in 3D. So they're just kind of going, and this is simplistic, I understand it, and don't get mad at me about it, but basically they're copying and pasting the images, one for the left eye, one for the right eye.
And you know what, though, is I do think going back to old movies, and old being previously released 2D movies, not like, 1920s silent films.
That would be awesome in 3D.
Yeah.
The Tramp in 3D.
I want to see Chaplin in 3D.
Yeah. But I do think that shooting movies in 3D that are designed to be played on the large screen as immersive, because I'll be honest, I saw Mars Rover, which is a Disney 3D IMAX, and my wife and I loved it, but that was immersive. The 3D for me wasn't the best, but I knew that going in. But, that to me was, there's a reason for me not to sit at home and put the DVD into my TV. It gives me a reason to go out to the theater and see the experience of the big screen. And I think that's the better avenue for it than trying to push it to other places. And then, the Hollywood can make all their money, and the hardware manufacturers can sell new projectors for D-Cinema and all that. But I'm not sure it makes sense to have it at home.
My wife and I, if we purchased 3D technology, we'd be watching movies separately.
I'd be buying
because I can't. A bad thing.
Well, not necessarily, but because I don't enjoy the experience. I can, I put on the glasses and I can see the picture come together, but there's just nothing there for me. There's nothing exciting.
2 years ago at InfoComm, you and I stood in the quote unquote hot zone or sweet spot. I really forget the terminology of this auto stereoscopic display. I thought it was really cool. It was neat. It was I could see everything. And you're standing right next to me, shoulder to shoulder, and you don't see Bubkiss.
Right.
That's just crazy. They should fix that.
Now, what I thought...
they got a lot more to fix than that over here.
Yeah. Now, having said that, what I think would be cool for schools is I'd love to see, kids work in 3D rendering programs and then go to a 3D printer and print out what they just drew in 3D. I think that'd be great rather than, a projection system.
Right, right. Well, there's other benefits, too, in the K through 12 and the education markets. We've seen different studies that show that they're able to identify vision issues early on with children and help them to get the help that they need early on, helping to enhance their learning throughout their educational years. And so in that case, the application of 3D in those environments is great. I just go back to, it's not for me.
Yeah. But you're not in school anymore, so.
Well.
You should be, but you're not. From AV Technology.
He's not letting up, is he?
Project Green AV has partnered, be quiet, with Global Electronics Recycling. Basically, this is a way for you, Michael, Mr. Integrator, you go into a school. Let's go back to schools for something, or somebody's house or a house of worship. And they have a 1975 Barco 3 Canon projector that's as big as a Yugo. They have a way for you to get rid of that. Go ahead.
No.
You recycle it. That you get rid of it in a responsible way. Question is, and we'll start with you since you're staring at me like that. First of all, would you do it? And secondly, what are the alternatives? Like, what are the people doing now? Are you just taking this back to your warehouse and waiting for a year and then toss it in the trash?
Not typically. That's left up to the owner to decide what they want to do. We'll turn over a lot of that hardware. Now, if they want us to dispose of it, then we'll work with an electronics recycler to dispose of that. And I think programs like this are excellent opportunities for integrators and owners to become environmentally responsible and to do things the right way, not just try to bury it in a dumpster somewhere and try to sneak it past the trash guy.
Brad, you deal with, you're from InfoComm, so you deal with a lot of industry guys. Mm-hmm. What's the sense that you get? Are guys just typically either, Michael said, leave it up to the owner? Are the owners throwing it in the trash, or are these guys bringing it back and eventually are they doing this?
It varies, obviously. It varies, and quite honestly, a lot of it has to do with the fact that some of these programs, some of these recycling programs, community by community, aren't always easy to identify. The fact that Project Green AV will just come up, anywhere and pick this stuff up and arrange for it to be recycled, it's frictionless. It makes for good ease of use. But there are integrators who have programs who are partnering themselves with recycling companies, so they do that. There are manufacturers who partner with recycling companies to help do this. But it varies, and some of it is just the fact that here in the U.S., it's not always easy to identify these programs. I mean, in my own house, when I want to recycle the fifth computer that I've gone through, it's not always easy for me to identify the best place to take it. So this kind of thing is a great program. InfoComm's got its, and it's not an InfoComm program anymore, but it's Green AV program. It's a Sustainable Technology Environments program. It's a STEP program, which is now run by a separate nonprofit foundation. Part of the STEP program and the rating system, which basically looks at an AV project and ranks it on its sustainability, part of it is, part of the way you get points is by addressing this kind of issue. And one of the first things that it encourages is, obviously you're going to recycle, but it also encourages you to look at a piece of equipment and see what else you can do with it. Does that speaker have 5 more years life in it, maybe in a different part of the building for a different use, something like that. So it encourages integrators, consultants, building owners to look at their equipment and see what else they can do with it before they go and replace everything. But then if there is no place for it to be used, and it is at the end of its life, it encourages to recycle, and more people are doing it. And it's a program like this will go a long way to helping ease that.
Well, and Bradford, a little bit about what Brad said. Not only does it give us, from an industry standpoint, a way to kind of responsibly get rid of this, but couldn't we also use this for Brad's 5th and 6th computer?
Heck, I'm going to give him my 7th and 8th computer.
You have Macs. Send them to me.
No, I have Windows machines as well as Linux. I'm truly an equal opportunity geek. But I think this is a great program. I actually think it solves a problem. As Brad alluded to, I have trouble. I have an old laser printer that, is taking up space, and I'm sitting here going, what do I do with it? And I've been donating them to, good causes recently, but even they're going, we don't want that. It's from last century. And I do think that I like the idea of the reuse option a lot better than the recycle, because I do think there are a lot of good places that can use some of these things. But I think having a recycle is a great thing. The fact that in theory I could pick up the phone and go, hey, Gina, come pick up this 61-inch Sony rear projection TV that doesn't do HD, which is sitting in my dining room if anyone wants to come pick it up. Just joking, but it is really in my dining room.
You're pretty close. I mean,
I finally, after 6 months, found someone who wants it because he's buying a new house. It only took me 6 months to get rid of. But, think about it. I spent 6 months trying to figure out what's the responsible way to dispose of this. I don't, there was no other way, there was no other way to get rid of it. And, I've had it 11 years. It's lasted its lifetime. It's time to be replaced. But to not have a way to get rid of it responsibly, I think shows 2 things. One, that we didn't think about it when we made this stuff, which I think is a problem. And 2, I don't think that, a lot of communities are thinking about it. So I'm very happy that, Green AV is making it easier for everyone to do this.
Yeah, I think that actually you spoke to something even bigger. We're not thinking about what to do with this stuff once its end of life comes. That goes for TVs all the way down to iPads. We're really not thinking about how to get rid of it. So, yay for Gina and the whole Project Green AV guys. From Crestron, here's the thing. If you've ever installed an Crestron product or held one in your hand, I like Crestron as a company. I like everybody there, everybody I've ran into there. There's one thing I don't like about them, and that's their power supplies. And I know this sounds weird to talk about, but it's they're ugly. And not that power supplies are ever pretty, but they're separated from the product for the most part. So they came out with something, and you guys can tell me I'm crazy because I think this is cool. They came out with a thing. It's their power supply trade-in program that lets you turn in 15 unused 12-volt, 1-amp power supplies for their new PS24. Now, that part's cool. But I think the fact that they have the PS24 is even better. So, Bradford, what do you think? Am I silly for thinking that power supplies are important, or are you on board with me and this is cool?
A little bit of both.
I'm silly and it's cool.
No, well, it's overdue.
Yeah.
To me, this goes back to what we were just thinking about before of the consumption and what do you do with it. Why is this taking so long? I remember years ago in last century when I was a contractor having to deal with the wall warts. That was one of my big things that used to drive me bonkers was hiding them in the rack. Mm-hmm. And then I don't remember which wireless mic company came out with a rack-mounted power supply that would power 4 wireless receivers. And I was like, this is great. Not only does it not take 4 outlets, it goes in the rack. It's easy. It's simple. Poof, done. So I think, without a doubt, it's a good idea. I'm just surprised it's taken this long. I also kind of wonder, though, who's going to have 15 power supplies sitting around unused. Because from my standpoint, most people are buying them to install them and put them in.
Well, that's the trade-in program. I think the bigger story for me is the fact that they actually have this thing now.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing. And also, I understand why they're doing external power supplies. I think that's actually a pretty good idea across the board. If I could figure out how, think about the fact that we're, this is a multinational industry. I'm not speaking for Crestron or for any other companies, just, from seeing my home electronics of being able to take something and go overseas and plug it into the wall by just replacing a wall wart is huge. Whereas, before it used to have to be, I need a whole nother model of it.
Yeah.
So I think the wall wart's not all evil. I just think having lots of them is evil.
Yeah, they're just a big inconvenience, and the Crestron bricks, as we call them, are somewhat obnoxious. They're better than a wall wart. The older style power supplies, because at least these you can strap into a rack. But when you've got a whole bunch of TP transmitters going into a couple of rack spaces, it just congests the snot out of that thing with all those power supplies. So this is definitely long overdue. I'm just waiting to see how Bradford figures out how to do this on an iTech HD.
It's a really big power supply. Well, it's part of the reason we went to the IEC power cord on there. Was exactly for worldwide.
Right. But I love the external power supplies from the perspective of failures. Right. What are one of the top things that fail in any device? It's the power supply. So you don't have to change out the whole device, unrack the whole thing. You just swap out the wart and away you go. My one concern with centralizing your power like this is obviously not redundancy, but availability. You lose that unit, you lose everything that's powered by that unit, and not just that one device that you would lose if you lost a brick. So there's definitely trade-offs.
Yeah, but go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, I see a next step also. I see a step where, you don't get these bricks with every Crestron device anymore.
Right.
The reason that this program exists in the first place is because they're putting one in every box. You look at the Amazon Kindle, which we now have a few in our houses. At some point they decided they're not going to give you a power supply with every one. You're going to buy one separately. I'm not going to buy one separately because I've got one in my house. I'm going to charge up a Kindle at a time or whatever it is. But I think the next step in this evolution, and I do think this is a great plan, and I think it's a great program, is just to say, okay, this is what comes in the box. What does not come in the box is the power supply. You figure out how you want to power your equipment, and we'll sell that to you separately.
But isn't that, you're absolutely right, and I think that speaks back to what Tim was talking about on the green and the STEP programs, and that is being more environmentally responsible when we're thinking about the manufacturing of this stuff, that we're not just shipping stuff arbitrarily to customers. And, he said, well, who's got 15 wall warts or bricks laying around? We do.
Yeah.
I've got boxes of them sitting in my warehouse right now that we don't know what to do with. When we need a power supply, we go down and grab one. But I'll probably take advantage of this trade-in program.
It goes back to, this is a stupid story, it goes back to when Crestron released their pole vault system.
Yeah.
Crestron, if you don't know, if you've never ordered anything from Crestron, they put what they call a tweaker, which is just a small screwdriver. Both has a Phillips end and a regular end on it. They put a tweaker in every single box that they send out to you. The pole vault system was multiple products on one SKU in one item. There was a tweaker in every single item in a pole vault system.
Yes, but have you ever gave one back?
No, but here's the thing. That was when they first came out. I think it was 07 or 08 when they first started shipping those. They wisened up, and there is no longer a tweaker in every single pole vault box. I think you get one with the entire system. So it cuts down on cost. It cuts down on waste. I can't tell you how many tweakers I've given away.
Big Allen wrenches.
Yeah. Oh, good
in every
Lord.
single box you get from IKEA.
Yeah.
And especially the security Allen wrench, the one with the hole in the center. Yeah. Anyhow. You're listening to AVWeek. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Allen keys are recyclable. I do know this from experience.
How do you recycle them?
I put them in the recycling bin right next to my empty soda cans.
Really?
They're metal.
They're steel.
Oh, yeah. I never thought of it. I've never thrown one away, but I just keep them in a coffee can.
There are certain tools I'm not allowed to bring back into the house because I have too many of them. Much like the Crestron tweakers
I can only imagine.
With him, yeah. Oh my!
How's it at your house, Brad? Are you like Bradford here?
I just hide them somewhere.
There you go.
That's the smarter way to do it.
Right.
You just hide them.
Right.
So
Then I can't find them.
you listen to AVWeek. That would be Brad Grimes from InfoComm, Bradford Benn from Harman, Michael Drainer from Tech Electronics. Coming up, we're going to talk about whether or not integrators are fish bait for IT companies, what Bradford wants for Christmas, and also a way for you to make $500,000. But first, it's time for the AVWeek Job of the Week, brought to you by Rave Pubs, ravepubs.com. This week, it is an AV technician in Lantana, Florida. It's for Mellon Securities and Sound Systems Incorporated, looking for an installation, somebody who can install audio, video equipment, networking, and programming. You have to have a high school diploma or a GED, and you can make $45,000 to $55,000 a year. Holy cow. For more
I think Tim's moving to Florida.
I'm not moving to not a bad idea.
There you go.
For more information, go to ravepubs.com and go to the resources section. Under there is are all of their job listings. So it's AVWeek Job of the Week, an installation technician, AV tech in Florida. So from CEPro, if you tattle on a Schneider electric counterfeiter, you can make up to $500,000. Sign me up. This is a program that Schneider has started. If you don't know, Schneider makes power supplies and stuff. People like APC, Square D, and Clipsal. But my question is first, and I say $500,000. Basically, if you report somebody and Schneider gets back actual restitution, if they get over $500,000, I'm sorry, you can make $100,000.
Not if you put it in 5 people.
In 5 people,
All
there
right,
you go.
there
You can
you
make if you report somebody and they get back $500,000 and above, you can make up to $100,000. So, Bradford, we'll start with you. Is this a big problem in AV counterfeit equipment? Like, have you ever ran into a counterfeit Crown amp?
Yes, we have.
Really?
It's mainly overseas, not here in the States. It was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you
up.
remember in 2008, Shure had a big deal with the Chinese government where they raided some factories in China, people who were counterfeiting SM58 microphones, and I know that we've heard stories of the Crown amplifiers, AKG microphones, and things along those
lines. So to make $100,000, I'm going to have to go to China.
Well,
Just eBay,
no.
actually.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest, though, for Schneider to do it, I think it's a good idea. Part of it is not just protecting their brand, but part of it is, let's remember, this is electrical stuff.
Well, yeah.
What's going to happen is, someone, hopefully no one, but someone's going to do something stupid, get a shock, injure themselves. They're going to see Schneider on the outside of it, or APC, or Square D, and go sue them. And then Schneider's going to have to go and say, no, this isn't really us. This is counterfeit, and prove that it's counterfeit, and everyone loses. Whereas now they can go, look, we're trying to get ahead of it. We've been trying to squash this in the bud. We've made our best effort. We're sorry, but not our fault. So I think there's a certain amount of that going on, of limiting liability. But I also do think there's a lot more, especially for some of the dumber, less complex electronics. Knockoffs are easy. You can get knockoff IEC cords, which people go, what do you mean, what's a knockoff IEC cord? One that's not actually UL listed or other safety agency listed.
Oh, okay.
So when you start looking at, Square D's making breakers, it would be kind of bad if there were cheap Square D breakers in your box. So I see the reason for it, but I don't think it's just an AV issue. I think it's a all commodity issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say, and when I sent you guys out the story, I was saying that this is kind of 1984-ish because you're telling on your neighbor. I can see where this is an issue now. So how does somebody go about doing it? Because I'm not smart enough to go, yep, that's a counterfeit APC device.
I think part of the reason that it is a problem. You mentioned Shure. Philips has problems with replacement bulbs and things. There have been companies in cables and connectors who've been trying to chase counterfeiters. Chasing counterfeiters is expensive. Protecting your brand, protecting your IP. Like Bradford said, a lot of this stuff happens overseas. It's an expensive proposition to continually protect your brand and protect yourself against counterfeiters. So, offering a reward, having someone, I wouldn't consider it tattling if I happen to, know that the APC that I've got is a knockoff and reporting it. I mean, it's illegal. It's against the law. This is sort of like, policing by the masses. I don't think your average consumer or average anybody is gonna necessarily be out inspecting these things and figuring this stuff out. But it is a big problem, and a lot of it has to do with contract manufacturing overseas. It's big business now. They call it. I think I heard it called like the third shift syndrome or something like that at some of these contract manufacturers, where basically the third shift, after the bosses go home, they grab a bunch of supplies and they go home and they assemble things, and then they drop ship it to someplace overseas, and it shows up on eBay or something like that. So it is a big problem. You want to protect your brand, but AV professionals and contractors, integrators, they obviously want to work with reputable dealers because, like Bradford said, you don't want, or I can't remember who said it, you don't want the liability of an electrical component, hurting someone or causing fire or anything like that.
So, Michael, when you're out doing an installation, is this something that you go back to? You're taking out old equipment. If you take something out, is the onus on you, the integrator, to say, "Hey, by the way, this is fake, this is counterfeit," or is it where you make the client aware and that the onus is then on them?
I haven't run into anything like that yet, especially on old product and. I think this is more of a recent issue, not something that we're going to see as we're decommissioning systems per se, but it is on us to make sure that we're dealing with quality distributors who are buying authorized product, and that comes into us building good relationships and partnerships with our manufacturers and knowing what the products are and understanding where they come from. Obviously, we want to provide a good product and a good service to our customers, and that's damaging to our reputation. If it's not, it's damaging to the manufacturer's reputation, and ultimately it hurts the consumer. Because as these guys, the manufacturers, have to ward off these counterfeiters, that's raising their cost of doing business, and that's eventually going to be translated to the consumer at the end of the day. And it's like Brad said, it's a no-win for everybody involved, and it's an economic impact too to our industry. So you start getting into national economics, you get into international trade. I mean, this is a big deal, and I think it's the responsibility of everyone who is involved with these technologies to keep their eye out for this stuff. And Schneider's making it more appeasing to do that, more appealing.
Or at least more profitable.
More profitable. There you go. So my question is, Bradford, when's Harman going to introduce their compensation program for spotting counterfeits?
If you can spot me a counterfeit, I'll give you a $4 XLS T-shirt.
Hey, do you guys have like an idea box like in the hallway or something in Harman? You should.
Yes, we do.
Then write it down and put it in the idea box.
There you go.
Actually, I can tell you we already have legal people looking at this, because about once a week we get an email of someone's, hey, I found this on eBay. Is it? Yeah, if it doesn't have a serial number and it's $2, it's probably not one of ours.
Well, and what's impressive is how accurate some of these counterfeits are. I mean, I've looked at different manufacturers, and they actually have little write-ups that tell you how to spot their counterfeits, the difference between the authentic and not, and it's a difficult spot.
I'm sorry, though, but okay, so yes, everybody's looking for a good deal, and everybody's trying to make their dollars stretch farther. But if I find, I don't know, give me a really big, expensive JBL speaker for $50, brand new. If something in my brain doesn't go, this probably isn't right, then something's wrong with me.
Yeah, but a lot of times, from what I can see, and this is, when people are counterfeiting, they're not selling it for $50. They're selling it for the normal retail price, so as to not get,
to not raise
alert
alarms.
people.
Right.
And, they make more money at it that way, too.
Well, yeah.
So instead of having to sell 10 of them to make $500, they can sell 5 of them and make $100 or $500.
Wow.
So we've seen some in that you can look at and go, the only way I could tell the difference is the power cord's too thin.
Yeah.
And, it sounds funny. These counterfeiters are pretty dang good. And it's not just electronics that has the problem. It's, it's everything has the problem nowadays.
The packaging even. I mean, they go to intricate detail to make sure the packaging looks exactly the same way, and they include the warranty cards. And I mean, this is not a small problem. But just a little plug for the integrators and dealers out there. That's why you need to buy from reputable companies, right, who have established relationships with good manufacturers.
Yeah. We like Harman, so.
Like Harman.
Woohoo!
By the way, we're going to be sending you the bill for all these plugs today.
No,
What's even better is I'm doing this on my lunchtime, so I'm not quite sure how that works.
You get commission. That's how it works.
No, he doesn't. He gets flown off to, Euro Disney next week or something.
There you go.
ATEA, or I'm going to butcher ATEA, is an IT company over in Norway, in the Nordic Baltic region of Europe. They purchased an AV company, AV Solutions, and here's the bigger question, and it's from Ray Publications. So go to our delicious link, and you can read more about the whole purchase thing. But this is not the first IT company who has purchased an AV company. So my question to you guys, and Brad, we'll start with you since you have a kind of an overarching view of AV. Is this an issue, or is this kind of, the economics of where we are right now, and, eventually the economy will rebound, and, purchasing an AV company, we won't, be on the rope so much and so vulnerable to other industries, especially IT guys coming in and swooping up and buying us when we're down?
Right. It's wow, loaded question. I do not own an integration firm. I am not the object of any takeover speculation or anything like that.
You're not?
However, there's a couple ways of looking at this. One of them is that if I did own an integration firm, and I was really, really good at what I did, and I was expert at what I did, and an IT company that needed my kind of expertise in-house bought me, am I worse off for that? Am I better off for that? I would argue that an IT company is going to go after really good integration firms, going to keep a lot of the people. It's going to become a part of their practice. And that's just sort of the lay of the land right now, is because a lot of what AV is expert at is falling, under the IT umbrella. And IT companies know what they don't know. A lot of them know what they don't know. They're either going to hire it, or they're going to train it, or they're going to go and acquire it. In reverse, is an AV company going to buy an IT company? I suppose it could happen. I suppose if an AV company of a certain size needed IT expertise, that's a way they could go out and find a smaller IT company. The bigger question is, are these two types of companies going to continue to merge? And I would say, I don't think it's a doomsday scenario where the IT industry is going to consume the AV industry. I just don't see that. There will always be AV companies that do bread and butter AV work better than anybody else, and they will continue to thrive, I believe. But IT companies that want to have an AV practice may look at acquisitions. We've been talking about acquisitions for years, and I don't think that they've happened at the clip that anybody worried would happen or predicted would happen. But the fact is that the two are merging. If you saw Systems Contractor News had their top 50 AV integration firms, and the second company on the list was a company out here in the D.C. area called Microtech, which is a very heavy IT company. Telepresence, unified communications is their expertise, and they have a good AV practice. So I don't think it's too early to say that this is a doomsday scenario, but we know that the two are coming together, and that's just inevitable. But that doesn't mean that AV, certified AV professionals, people who really know the experience, how audiovisual is appreciated at the end user end of the system, they're always going to be in high demand. Cisco realizes this. Other IT companies realize this. But if we're asking, will other companies be bought? Yes, I think they will, and I think it could go either way.
So I guess that would be my bigger question: is this the end of the world if you're purchased by an IT company?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to buy up your AV practice only to fire half your workforce, all your workforce. They're acquiring you because they're getting requests for integrated systems from their end users. They're getting requests for things that they don't know about. And so they're not acquiring in order to, knock out a competitor or anything like that. They're not, acquiring, just for the sake of getting big. I think these IT companies are acquiring because they lack a certain expertise that AV companies have. And so, in that case, the sum is greater than the two parts. It's not like your corporate Wall Street mergers and acquisitions. This is an acquisition out of need, rather than getting greedy.
Michael, your overarching company is not just AV. Your company entails IT and telephone and security and all that other jazz. Does it mesh well together, or is it kind of like a fruit salad inside Jello?
It's definitely that on some days. That's for sure.
I got Bradford's attention.
Have you had lunch yet, Bradford?
No one brought me Starbucks either.
Sorry about that. I think that this is just a further testament to the ongoing convergence of AV and IT. We've been talking about it for years. We've been seeing it begin to happen, and it's been happening for a long time as more and more AV systems live on the LAN. You're going to see these two groups come closer and closer together. And if you're a small AV company and you're not doing IT, you're going to have to partner with somebody that does IT. And IT companies are getting more and more demands for conference rooms and collaboration and teleconferencing and video conferencing. There's all kinds of different applications. And talking to speaking to what Brad was saying, they're satisfying a need. and that need is for those integration services because somebody is requesting them. On the other side of the coin, you've got AV companies who are good-sized firms that need that IT expertise, and they've got the guys that understand basic IP networking. But as the networks become more and more complex, and you've got quality of service controls going into place, and you're working in MPLS clouds and connecting people in multiple territories, you come to an elevated level of IT knowledge that your typical AV integrator is not going to have. When you get into those environments, if you don't have a strong IT group, you're going to have to either acquire it, partner, or train for it. And a lot of times it just makes sense to acquire it. As is the case in this particular story.
Bradford, is this a big deal, or are these guys right? And this is just kind of how we're going, and it makes more business sense because our industry is going more IT.
I think it makes more business sense. I don't think it's the sky is falling at the moment. I think it's just business is evolving. As Michael alluded to and Brad alluded to, it's a lot of IT companies are being asked to put in video and audio systems, and it's expanding on. So they're buying these people realizing we have no idea how to set up a remote teleconferencing system or a remote video conferencing system, and what's the difference between a far talker and a far listener, and mix minus, they kind of glaze over. So I think that's the big thing, is they want to be able to control their destiny and not have to rely on a subcontractor, as well as being able to not have to pay as much markups along the way. So I just think it's business evolving as technology is taking a bigger and bigger hold. I think it's a good thing for the overall industry because this means that Pro AV is kind of here to stay and considered part of the base buildings now, of table stakes of, if I'm building a new office building or I'm going to expand, I need to put in this, and this. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, and it's the way it's going. I don't, as Brad said, I don't think it's people trying to take out their competition. I think it's more people trying to control their entire value and supply chain.
Yeah. Good. I feel better now. Because I was all freaked out. And
he had this big gray cloud over him when he walked in.
That was my sound effect for a cloud.
That was a cloud?
Oh, be quiet. From Chicago Tribune, this is the part of the show where we get to find out what Bradford wants for Christmas. Actually, he's going to give us something, and we'll get to that in a second. We're going to go around the horn here and see the Chicago Tribune article says basically this is the gadget gifts for everybody. So, Brad Grimes, we'll start with you. What is it? What is the one or two things either on this list or another list from a technology standpoint that you would like to see under the old Christmas tree?
Oh my!
And you can send this to your wife if you'd like.
What do you want for Christmas? I want nothing. I just want you guys to get along. That's all.
I want love, not war.
Yeah, I
world peace.
I'll disclose. I already have a Kindle Fire.
Okay.
So that doesn't need, don't anybody send me one of those. It's a nice platform. It's got it's got a lot of first generation issues it needs to iron out. One of the gadgets, and I don't know that it's going to be ready in time for Christmas. I know they're taking pre-orders. Are these Litro light field cameras? These new cameras. It's sort of some genius out of Stanford. Came up with a light field camera, which basically means everything just comes rushing into this camera that looks like a little viewfinder. It's just this tiny little thing. It's basically something that you don't have to focus or anything like that because all the light comes in. You can focus basically your pictures afterwards.
I've seen this.
Yeah, they're very cool. Litro is the name of the company. I know they're taking pre-orders. They're not inexpensive. We're talking $400 something maybe for a light field camera. But they're really cool. And like I said, they don't look like a camera. They look like a little rectangular sort of viewfinder. They're tiny, but they look fantastic. And it's a Silicon Valley type thing that someone just invented something really neat. So it's not going to be cheap right out of the gate, but I think there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with that, and a Litro. But I don't know if Santa will be able to get it under the tree in time.
You know what that reminds me of? If you've ever seen Walt Disney describe his depth of field contraption that they developed back in the 50s or 60s, where the old type of creating animation was you have a flat piece of paper and you draw on that. And they developed this system whereby they created the background in several different layers, and then they took a camera and came out of that very slowly, and that created a more depth of field when it came to the animation. The same thing with this thing here. Basically, you're getting every possible angle, and then afterwards in the software, you can adjust and you can focus and stuff. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's LYTRO.
LYTRO. Michael, what do you want for Christmas?
A 4K projector.
Oh, my.
I know there's not any content for it.
There's that.
There's just not many gadgets I really want this year. I haven't seen anything that little Litro camera is pretty cool. But for the most part, I've got the iPad and, I've got the BlackBerry. I would really love to have an Android phone, but that's
you would like to have any kind of phone,
phone other than the BlackBerry. Too bad it's company issued. But yeah, I can't think of any. There was nothing that really stood out for me. What do you get the gadget guy that's got every gadget?
A security system,
a tie,
a gift certificate.
Yeah,
Bradford, it is your turn, sir.
Oh man! So this peace on earth, goodwill towards men and women, or is that too much to ask for?
No, your
Good.
tweets.
That's good.
That's good. Your tweets.
I like that one.
If you don't follow Bradford, we'll get you then at the end. But usually, if he's out and about, he'll say, "Today is December. We're recording this on December 16th. Today is December 16th. Please be nice to each other."
Yep.
I love that.
Well, thank you. What got me started was looking at the article you sent out about the computer captain and the Netgear Powerline AV adapter kit that I actually have 2 of in my house.
Oh, wow.
And the reason is because I couldn't make one work, and I hung up on tech support when they couldn't help me. I'm still trying to figure out what my Cisco wireless router has to do with my Netgear Powerline AV, but apparently I had to reset that. So what me and tech support get along great.
Yes.
But also I've canceled Christmas. It's now free loot day. But the other thing I want, and this is kind of one of those big industry things that's my big rant, is I've been spending way too many hours trying to get a media server that works with all the different platforms in my house. So I can rip my music once, store it on my hard drive, and play it on my TiVo, on my iPad, on my iPod, on my Mac, on my PS3, on my wife's Mac, and not have to run these cables all over the place and transcode and all this other stuff. That's all I want for Christmas, to be able to listen to my media any place in the house.
That's an awful lot.
Have you used FreeNAS?
I looked at it, and it did not meet the wife acceptance requirement.
Oh, really?
Because that's the other thing is being what we do for a living, I want to be able to come home, pick up the remote, because I have 4 of them. Hopefully I have the right one, because I really want the Logitech. And then press the button and music just magically appears, not actually have to think about it.
And I get that, especially if you do what we do for a living. You don't want to think about your technology when you get home. So,
see, and you thought I was going to ask for something like an iPad or a Kindle Fire or something like that. Although a waterproof iPad would be great.
Oh, now that would be a good one. Cool. Okay, I will put that one on my list. Yeah.
Because, I look at it. My wife has hers in the kitchen when she's cooking. And the amount of times I'm like, oh, she's going to get something on it.
Yeah. Or drop it in the pasta bowl or something.
Yeah, you see, so waterproof iPad that's still functional.
There are companies that will dip your electronics in this really thin layer of plastic.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work on a touch screen though.
Well, it should.
Might.
I mean, you buy protectors for your electronics all the time.
Oh,
for your phones and stuff.
Okay, I'm going to the Google.
Bradford's looking for it.
Before you do that, Bradford, you did have a giveave.
Yes,
that you
I
wanted to do.
Yeah, actually, for those of you who follow my blogs and my tweets, I've been talking a bunch about evil Facebook and using photo hosting services instead. And SmugMug, which is my photo hosting service, not that I own them, that I use them. I have no, interest in it. They stepped up and said, we'll give away for you, a 1-year pro level membership in SmugMug free of charge. And this is available to people anywhere in the world as long as they have internet. So the idea being is you come to my site or follow me on Twitter and take a look around, and the instructions are pretty easy. And you just enter, and I'm not doing anything with it other than sharing the joy and trying to be nice to everyone of, giving this cool thing away. So you have a way to share photos with your friends and family that is easy, plus be able to click a button and get a print through SmugMug. And you can just go to bradfordbenn.com with 2 N's and register there, or follow me on Twitter, which I know Tim will spit out those URLs as well. But that's pretty much it. They're just being nice and wanting to give people free Loot Day gifts.
And I'll chime in here real quick. We're a SmugMug household. My wife takes pictures semi-professionally. She's got a professional level. It's a great service.
Unsolicited.
So is it just a hosting service, or can you get prints and stuff through it too, like Vista?
You can get prints.
T-shirts.
And these are good
really?
prints.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Brad.
No,
Calendars.
Bradford's right. These are good prints. These are professionally done prints, quality paper, real pros behind the scenes doing all this stuff.
Oh, that's good. I bought my wife a really nice digital SLR last year for Christmas, so she's been taking pictures of the dogs.
You can enter. I got pictures of the dogs up there.
Yeah.
It sounds funny. The reason I like them is this is what I think every company should do. When you get a print from them, they guarantee it. If you don't like it, return it. Well,
Wow,
or
really?
they'll reprint it for you. Yeah. They
That's
have
cool.
a print guarantee, which tell me any other company that does that. And they're nice people. I've actually gone out to their office and they made me lunch. Try doing that with other companies.
Yeah. So SmugMug, I suggest go to Bradford's website, bradfordbenn.com, BENN, or he's on the Twitter at Bradford Benn. So real quickly, guys, not that this is not up for debate because the election's already been held, but Cedia has released and assigned, volunteered, elected their executive committee and the board of directors. It's a 2-year volunteer stint. There's consultants and integrators and people like that. Not that I expect a grand discussion here, but does anybody have anything to say other than, yay, congratulations, Cedia has their board in place? None? Okay.
Well, I was actually going to say...
That was a good response.
I was going to say, and I'm trying to remember who brought it up earlier, is it's interesting that the chairman is from Mexico and not from the U.S., so it's truly branching out.
Yeah, and good for them for doing that, So, all right, real quickly, I got this in the email. If you're a CTS holder, you get your CTS updates in the emails and stuff, and this comes from Brad's fine organization, InfoComm. It is the 3 CTS renewal myths. First of all, it is expensive to renew the CTS. Well, yes, if $125 over 3 years is expensive to you, then yes, I suppose that is expensive. But in the grand scheme of things, what's it say? Like 30 cents a day, I think? Hang on.
It was 11 cents a day.
11 cents a day. Yeah, that's not too bad.
I spend that on Starbucks.
Yeah.
You spend more than 11 cents a day at Starbucks. If you're anything like me, you spend half your check.
Renewal credits are not important. Au contraire, you need them because you can't renew it without the RUs. And there are not really many ways for CTS Ds and Is. Real quick, actually, further on in the rest of this article, they talked about guys who get both Ds and Is. In ways, I will admit, I failed my D test this year. I don't remember what part I failed, but I did fail it.
But it wasn't by much.
It wasn't by much, which is somewhat infuriating. Brad, can you do anything about that?
Can't pull those strings.
Come on! I was so close.
That's why he's now in broadcasting again.
Close.
The important thing in all this, there's a few important things about CTS. We talked a little bit earlier about AV and IT coming together in these joined industries and becoming part of more part of the building industry. I mean, AV is really a player at the table right now, and we're sitting at tables with lots of people who understand standards they understand codes, they understand certifications. They all talk in those terms. So, even pre-InfoComm days, I understood that the value of a AV certification was very high. And these days, now that the CTS program is accredited by national and international standards bodies, it's more gravitas. It's a much more serious thing. I mean, people understand these things. Architects, builders, they understand ANSI standards. They understand ANSI accreditations. And to be honest with you, a CTS or a CTSD or a CTSI, they're all starting to mean more and more and more in the larger built environment community. And so InfoComm is actually, they're not making it easier to pass the test and actually attain the CTS, but they're making it easier to get the training you need, the renewal units.
RUs.
Yeah, the RUs. As an editor, you always have to spell it out the first time before we can go to RUs. But, there's a lot of ways you can get RUs now. The manufacturers are able to get their courses certified by InfoComm so that they can offer RUs. You can go to some of these traveling road shows from distributors like Almo, and you can get RUs. They're trying to make and they offer their training now to integration firms, to other companies, so that they can train their own staff. We're trying to make it easier for people to get their RUs so that they can go, get their CTS renewed. And a lot of this has to do with, some things can never change. Some things will have to be the way they are because it's ANSI accredited. I mean, we have to do things a certain way in order to retain worldwide accreditation for this program. So some things will never change. But you can take your CTS tests in all sorts of locations. You can take it at the Integrated Systems Europe this what is it, January, February. You can take the test there. They offer the CTS test at InfoComm this year in Las Vegas. So the goal is to put more tools in more people's hands so that they can get their CTS, retain their CTS, because it really is a big part of keeping the AV industry high profile, relevant, and important at the table with architects, IT professionals, and everybody else. It's a great program, and I'm not saying that just as an InfoCommer. I believed that long before I joined the staff.
Well, I'll say as a non-InfoCommer, I do think it's important. I think it's important to get your CTS and maintain your CTS if once you have it. It's really easy to go out and go to training, go to meetings, go to whatever, and then every 3 years you pay $125 and you fill out a piece of paper that said I went to this, and this, and I've got my 30 renewal units. So. Yep. Brad, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. This has been AV Week. That is Brad Grimes from the fabulous organization known as InfoComm International. Before that, though, he was the. What was your title at Pro AV? Was it just editor in chief?
Yeah, I was the editor of Pro AV.
Okay, yeah. So long time, industry writer and great professional. So thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Sure, I appreciate it.
His Twitter, if you'd like to follow him, is at Grimes Pro AV, which goes back to the Pro AV part. His website, though, is InfoComm International, or infocom.org, actually, is where you can find him there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Bradford Benn, welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I appreciate you, too. His Twitter or website is at Bradford Benn, BENN, or www.bradfordbenn.com for the chance to win the whole year-long Smug Mug. So thanks for coming on, dude.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Let me know when we start taping.
Any minute now. And Michael Drainer over there is the guy who didn't bring any of us Starbucks. He's at Michael Drainer, Drainer, and he's from Tech Electronics in St. Louis. So thank you for coming by.
It has been a pleasure again.
I'm Tim Albright. If you'd like to find us and more information about us, we have a new home. It is at Rave Pubs. Ravepubs.com, ravepubs.com/AVNation. AV, and then the word nation. So check us out there.
Just like it sounds.
Just like it sounds. Check us out there. Next week will be a best of. We'll be working feverishly on that. So if you have a best of, give us a call, or not give us a call, good Lord, give us an email. You can still go by the website. It's still up. It's got our information and stuff like that. But for the actual podcast, go to Rave Pubs. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for listening. It's all the time we have for AV Week.